You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. I'm here with longtime Seattle sportswriter Danny O'Neill because it's a big day for the incredibly long-suffering, once and quite possibly future Seattle SuperSonics fans here in our region. Hey, Danny, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me, Libby. And it occurs to me that perhaps this is a version of the movie Toe, right? Because something we had, a franchise, basketball franchise, got stolen, relocated somewhere else, and we fought for 18 years, and now maybe we're finally going to possibly get maybe not that back, but a version of it back.
Those kinds of analogies are what make your your sports writing
me a
so
clinically
golden.
Insane person.
No. Okay. So just to set the scene for folks, this morning, the NBA Board of Governors announced that it had approved exploring two possible expansion teams in Seattle and in Las Vegas. You are allowed to get excited, listeners, but let's be careful about this because it's not a done deal. The team is not back yet officially. Danny, we've been through this before, cycles of getting our hopes up. This vote does make it tangible in terms of what the league plans to do, right? Can you kind of walk us through the significance of this vote and what happens next?
Well, we've never gotten this far with the flirtation. Like, they've always toyed with us at the bar, like just some general flirting of like, oh yeah, we'd really like to get back together, and then they kind of vanish. This is an actual, like, they've agreed to make a date. They have the NBA's Board of Governors, which is a hilarious way to refer to the 30 teams that exist in the league.
The owners. It's just the owners, yeah. Right?
They got together and said, yeah, the league can go and start vetting potential ownership groups and situations in Seattle and Las Vegas. And it's been building toward this for a while, but this is actually tangible. And now they're going to start to see who is willing to bid, how many people they can have, and how much they're going to end up charging for a franchise. But the most significant part is that the wheels are now in motion, and you could see a situation where a expansion franchise is awarded at some point this year, with the team taking the court in 2028, 2029.
We had the announcement yesterday that the Kraken ownership has now created this umbrella organization called One Roof Sports. They bought out a majority stake in Climate Pledge. So they are clearly trying to kind of elbow out any potential competitors to make a bid here for a Sonics expansion team, right? I mean, are there other potential ownership groups that could potentially compete with them? I mean, it seems like they are the front runners, right?
They're clearly established with a lane. They have a building that is suitable to play. And when Climate Pledge was constructed, it was done with the idea that it could and should house an NBA team as well. Their business model wasn't contingent upon having both NHL and NBA teams playing there, but it certainly was done with the idea that that's how it would work best. There might be other ownership groups, but they would have the challenge of not only having to pay the expansion franchise fee, which is going to be hefty. They would presumably have to have a different place to play, because yesterday's announcement and the way Samantha Holloway has set things up is clearly the group that owns the Kraken is interested in owning the NBA expansion franchise and should be considered the front runner. But the NBA would absolutely love it if there were competing interests here, because the estimates I've seen for an expansion franchise fee are between $7 and $10 billion, which is an incredible amount of money.
It's such an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
I mean, it compared to the way that other sports franchises lately have been valued. Like, I think it was maybe Tim Booth at the Seattle Times or somebody pointed out, even the Yankees are like valued at 6 or 7 billion, and it's the freaking Yankees. Like, a new expansion NBA franchise is 7 to 10 billion now.
Yeah, hearing people in the sale price for the Celtics when that's the most recent team that sold. I've had financial people explain it to me using terms like the multiples that are And I'll admit, I don't understand franchise valuations. I don't. I get that there's an international market for NBA games that doesn't exist for baseball and for NFL football games, but it is a crazy environment. To put it in perspective, when the Sonics were sold, which was 2006, is when Howard Schultz sold the team. It was 350, 375 million. It was less than $400 million. And if nothing else, the king of the latte like missed out huge by selling that team when he did.
He doesn't live in Seattle anymore. He
I
decamped to
heard that. I
Florida,
heard, and
so
nobody misses him.
he's probably not listening anymore. He was, I bet, a daily listener to Soundside and KUOW, but now that he's moved, you can twist the knife. Danny, you wrote a little bit about this, but the league has changed a lot since 2008. I mean, what kind of an NBA would an expansion franchise in Seattle be entering now? And I mean, is it a good time to be an expansion franchise? I always think of that as being like, oh, you got some building years ahead of you.
Now, generally in the NBA, it's been very hard when the early years expansion teams take their lumps. We don't know what the rules will be for how players are expected, how talent will get allocated. But in general, it is a much better time to be in the NBA than it was 20 years ago because there is much more parity. There have been over the past 7 years, 7 different teams have won a championship. And that kind of parity just honestly did not exist in the 80s, the 90s, and the aughts. It wasn't there. The teams that were dominant, you could count on one hand when the season started. So I think it's a really good time. I know there are going to be Seattle fans that are done with the NBA and will still be mad about the way the franchise was removed. And I can't blame them for that. And there are some people that find the way the game is played. There are a ton more 3-pointers that are shot. It is to say it's dunks and threes is not a huge exaggeration. The game has changed that way. I think it's great. I really enjoy watching the league. The regular season is too long. It would be better if it was 50 games, but the NBA playoffs remain one of the most interesting and exciting things to watch. I'm really excited for the league that Seattle is coming back to.
Can we have an expansion franchise in Seattle if Vegas doesn't have an ownership group and approval for their expansion franchise? Do we know yet? Like, does this all hinge on what happens in Vegas?
No. Yes, we can. It appears that the line is much straighter in Seattle than it is to expansion is much straighter in Seattle. But the quick answer is that having a round number of teams in the NBA is not nearly as necessary as it is in other sports. That said, the fact that the NBA has gotten to this point and is considering Las Vegas, I think they know, if not exactly who and where things are going to work out there, they have a pretty strong idea. So I do expect both cities to get it, but Seattle's is not contingent upon Las Vegas also being ready to go.
You wrote an incredible clapback in the News Tribune, which I really encourage
folks to...
Let's not
use incredible on anything I write, Libby.
You wrote a clapback. Let's
not strain the language English like
I'll
that.
take the modifier. You wrote a clapback, which I quite enjoyed, in the News Tribune that folks should read. It came out today. And it basically involves this whole narrative I was not aware of because I don't read Oklahoma City Thunder press very much.
You're a better person for that.
I try to keep my sanity and I try to keep my mental health protected. But apparently there is some sort of effort in Oklahoma City to say that Seattle Sonics fans, before we get the history of the team back, if the expansion is approved and all that, that we need to apologize to them for some reason. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. It was a journalist who works for USA Today. He covers the team for the Thunderwire. I'll admit, I was kind of excited when I read it because I worried when the Thunder won the championship last season that my 18 years of inveterate hating of everything related to the Thunder had all been for naught. Like that it hadn't really. And I was actually excited to know that I'd hurt at least one person's feelings. But look, I'm always going to hate the Thunder, and it's not really an issue for their fans. Their fans didn't do anything other than cheer for the team that we were robbed of. But I also kind of feel like sports and being a sports fan at its core is a kind of irrational thing. And I will have sports hate, not serious real life hate, but I will always have sports hate for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And maybe what I'm most excited for about the Sonics coming back, other than an entire generation of people getting to be reintroduced to Sonics basketball, is what it's going to feel like watching an actual Sonics team play the Thunder. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. I don't intend to stop hating the Thunder anytime soon.
I do think I'm going to shed a tear if like we see like Detlef and Gary Payton and Nate McMillan, like those guys like come and talk at some of these, like, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I do think it's going to be very emotional. It's been a long 18 years, and this is it's a special time for the city. Any final thoughts, Danny?
Yeah, Dave Wyman, who I worked with for years, that's the thing he would always bring up, that it would suck for the former Sonic players because they didn't have a place to go and be celebrated. Right? Like Dave played for the Seattle Seahawks, and it's been this great home for him. And people love the fact that he played on the 92 team. And there are a lot of lifelong connections that people in Seattle have made with those players, many of whom still live here. And to not have that, there are a lot of things that are really cool about this. I would agree with you. I think that's my favorite one, is that we're going to get to connect with the history that team has, 40 years of really great history.
Yeah. Danny O'Neill, you can find him on the Substack, The Dang Apostrophe. Read his new piece in the News Tribune. Danny, always fun to chat with you, especially on a day like this with your Sonics green and gold on. Really, right. Really appreciate you.
I really appreciate it. It's great to talk to you, Libby. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime right here online at KUOW.org, or of course on your favorite podcast app.